with a special hardball town hall event. Not since Barack Obama.
Makes an entrance.
So fast. He's 37 years old, a graduate of Harvard, a Rhodes Scholar, a Naval Reserve officer who was deployed to Afghanistan, and the mayor of a small city in Indiana, population 100,000, Pete Buttigieg. He says his 8 years leading South Bend, Indiana, gives him more experience to be president than Donald Trump had. He gave me a tour of his hometown, which a decade ago was cited as one of America's 10 dying cities. The same year, Buttigieg was elected mayor. So you don't mind being called Pete by this guy? You don't have to say Your Honor?
That's my name.
He's my mayor.
It'd be funny if I insisted on being called Your Honor. Hey, how are you? Good seeing you.
In South Bend, they just call him Pete, the hometown mayor who's suddenly a national celebrity.
Say hi to Mayor Pete.
You wake up in the morning, do you feel, Mayor?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Because the first thing you're doing is you're checking to see what happened overnight. If it wasn't something worth waking you up.
The city was in a decades-long decline. The Indianapolis Star called the business district a blighted ghost town. The tallest high-rise was empty. Today, investment is pouring in. There are new condos, parks, restaurants, even a nightly light display along the river. One of the mayor's proudest achievements, smart sewers.
So this little thing here contains a piece of
makes an entrance.
Welcome to Yell Brick Road. I'm Jordan with 3 other people here, randomly. We are watching the Pete Buttigieg town hall on MSNBC and analyzing his non-policy stances. So the first question was about gun registry. Didn't really hear the answer. We'll move on from there.
People kill people.
It's up to you guys if you want to be on camera or not. I just started it off camera.
Let's talk about the guy who's leading on the polls, Joe Biden, over the weekend.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. That's one of the bullshit things I'm talking
basically,
about.
that you couldn't go back to the norm. Yep. That we can't go back to the 90s any better than we go back to the 50s. Because the Democrats were rejected. People voted for an electoral college, at least, for Trump.
Here's the thing. People have seen Democratic and Republican administrations letting them down for basically as long as I've been alive. And there's a sense that our economy and our government are twisted, are tilted, are not working for us. And it was incredibly upsetting. At a time when most Americans, by the way, agree with Democrats on most issues, to see us basically cast out as though we represented the system. If we don't demonstrate that we understand the need to transform the systems that we're living in, not just tinker around the edges, not replicate what we're used to. I guess the point is, if we have a campaign where the theme is, let's go back to normal, then I think it's
That's what Biden wants. You're suggesting Biden would do that.
I'm not going to talk to anybody else's campaign.
Oh, yes, you are. This is an indirect shot at Biden. Come on. Does anybody think he's talking about Biden when he says we're going to... Thank you.
There's like 24 of us. I don't know which ones are pursuing...
Yeah, something's wrong with my phone. For some reason, it's been like, yeah, I did that with my house as well. It won't connect to my internet too. It's at the point where it's like, no, you're gonna have to get a new phone. And I'm like, 6.
Between periods in American history, every 30, 40, 50 years, you come to one of these hinge points. The beginning of the Reagan era was one. And the Reagan era has basically lasted all the way till now. Yeah. It has constrained how Democrats and Republicans have behaved once they got into office. Problem is, it didn't work. The whole idea, and Democrats bought into this too, was the rising tide lifts all boats. As long as we make sure there's growth, everything else will take care of itself. The problem is, you start the clock right around the time I was born. And what you find is the rising tide rose, but most of the boats didn't budge. Most people's median income didn't move. And I think that sense that the system overall has failed us helps to explain why, around here in this part of California, certainly around where I live in the industrial Midwest, a lot of people who were under no illusions about the president being a good guy, okay? There are no illusions about his character.
Hey.
You gotta check the movie titles for Johnson 3?
Yeah, to send a message, and that's exactly what we got.
You guys want to see
We're
one?
going to
Just
demonstrate
go one right over
that
there.
we are speaking to the fundamental concerns that made it possible.
Well, that's a powerful message, Mayor, because I want to ask you, do you believe that the politicians at the national level of both parties have been out of touch? Let's go to a local person right off the bat, Jacqueline Lowe. Where's Jacqueline Lowe? There she is. Thank you. 4th generation farmer, walnut farmer here in Fresno, California. Jacqueline, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pete.
Hello.
Welcome to Fresno, and thank you, Hardball, for coming to Fresno. My name is Jacqueline Lowe, and I'm a 4th generation farmer, and my family farm currently raises walnuts in the San Joaquin Valley. President Trump's policies on tariffs and trade are absolutely devastating our opportunity to sell our products overseas, particularly in Asia. Now, you are in Fresno, in the heart of the San Joaquin Valley, one of the richest agriculture areas in the world. And we would like to know, what are your ideas on trade policy and tariffs as they relate to farmers and ag policy? and agricultural industry.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for raising that issue. And I hope I get a chance to try your product sometime. I bet that when I do, one of the things I'll come away believing is that anybody in the world ought to be able to enjoy it. You ought to be able to sell it to anyone in the world. I mean, the San Joaquin Valley helps feed not just America, but the world. The products that are grown here are world class. And yet, what we're finding is that because of a short-sighted, I can't even call it a strategy, I can't even call it a policy. It's a pattern. It's a pattern of poking people in the eye to see what will happen. But when you don't have, look. I completely get the idea. If China's doing something unfair, I get the idea of standing up to them. If there are trade deals that are not benefiting us enough, I get the idea of adjusting them to make sure that it's fair trade. But that's not what we're seeing right now. What we're seeing right now is basically politically motivated gamesmanship, and it's coming down on your back. It's hurting farmers, it's hurting workers, it's hurting consumers. I wonder how many consumers are yet aware that the projection is that we will all pay, on average, $800 more a year, starting now, because of these tariffs. And by the way, a tariff is a tax. So if you ever believe the Republicans don't raise taxes, that's what they're doing right now.
Let's go to Mayor. There's another guest. Calvin Fleming, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Pete. Happy Pride.
Thank you.
As a gay dad who adopted my 2 sons through foster care, I wanted to find out what your plans were to fix the broken foster care system. Hint, I hear you and Shaston are looking to grow your family.
Well, first of all, thank you for making such a positive difference in the lives of your children. And I believe that we have been seeing the consequences of grossly under-resourced foster care systems. You know, each state does it differently, and most every state is letting kids and families down. So we need to have a process that will hold states to a higher standard. Yes, it's okay that states can have some independence on this, but it is not okay for children to be kicked around from home to home, for wait lists to be infinitely long. And by the way, it would also make a big difference if it were harder for agencies to discriminate against same-sex parents who can provide loving families. And as for our plans, Chasten's right here. He's a very patient person. Obviously, I've made a couple of professional decisions that are kind of complicating our pathway to parenthood, but we can't wait. And maybe you can give us some advice down the line on how to meet that.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, thank you. I wanted to ask you, I want to talk to you about a follow-up to Calvin and what he raised there. And I think there's other questions the audience we didn't get to along those same lines. We're, with your candidacy, we're at kind of a new frontier. We had a Catholic president when I was growing up, and it soon happened. This is not just political talk. Soon after he was elected president, his religion never came up again. It wasn't relevant. There were bigger things. We were fighting the Russians. We had Cuban Missile Crisis and things like that, and much more important. And with the first African-American president, and I growing up in this country thought, wow, this might be a challenge for the country. And yet, you know, Michelle Obama was enormously popular as First Lady, a 70-some% popularity.
He was really good at it.
And so, why don't you, Chasten's here, and I just think, I want to talk about the people, not like Mike Pence, who are never going to vote for you for all kinds of reasons, partisan and other ones.
There's hope for everybody, you know.
What about the people? What about the people who honestly say, gay couple in the White House, let me think about that? What do you want to say to them? They just want to think about it.
I would ask them to think about what kind of president I would make and how I would serve them. And that's what we did in South Bend. You know, when I came out, it was relatively late, certainly compared to Chasten and other people I knew. I was already mayor. I'd been through this deployment. It prompted me to realize that you only get one life. And I thought, I got to get on with a personal life, and that means coming out. It happened to be an election year. And we weren't sure what the politics of it would be. I mean, Mike Pence was governor of our state at that time. South Bend was generally Democratic, but also quite socially conservative.
Yeah.
And what wound up happening was I got reelected with 80% of the vote because people just cared about what kind of job I was doing for them as mayor. Right. And I trust Americans to do the same thing nationally.
One of the reasons I'm a student of people like Kennedy, and I have to say, one reason he won the West Virginia primary is he did it the way you're doing it. Very direct, very open, very clear, and let them make up their minds. I think it's wonderful the way you're doing this. And anyway, we're going to come right back. We're going to talk about another light-hearted topic, impeachment. We're coming back with that.
There we go. So yeah, I'm waiting for foreign policy. I'm waiting for healthcare. I would be interested in the gun control question, but I missed that part. Fuck. Turn that shit down. Damn. So what I expect tonight is a TV show called Hardball that's going to give him softball fucking questions, because we all know what it is. They don't want Bernie Sanders in office. They don't want Tulsi's name even fucking mentioned. They're going to prop up Mayor Pete.
Yeah, I was, but like it's not my album.
As Chris Matthews said not too long ago, Mayor Pete is the next Joe Biden, a young Joe Biden, as he said. I also want to hear his national service policy. What does that mean? Ages what are going to have to serve in the military to some capacity? 18 to 26? I don't know.
Like, you got an Instagram account? Yeah. Add me.
Wait, do we add each other on Instagram? Yeah, I do follow you. You don't post anything. Oh yeah, no, I post the last.
I will go back to the stream. It's just on a fucking commercial. Not showing that shit.
My Instagram name is Michael Japasella.
Yeah, this is like fucking when the year started. January 2nd. That's the last thing I posted. Yeah.
I see it. This is your account.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, you drew this?
Oh. Oh wait, let me see.
Is that Gunman or is that Transformers?
Let me see. Oh no, I didn't draw that. That was just like wrong. That was just a picture I just had to post for like a holiday.
Gotcha.
Here, actually, a drawing. You missed the drawing.
What's that?
Yeah, here.
As far as me drawing.
No, you missed it right there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did. I'm not that good at that shit. I got them upstairs. You guys want to see?
Sure.
them?
Yeah.
As far as drawing, I just.
Oh, we'll either BRB or catch you later.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too. Forgot my cup.
Have fun at the movies.
Thanks. Have fun with the street.
All right, we're back.
Fresno, California, with South Bend Mayor and 2020 presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg. Thank you. Your question, sir.
All right, thank you. Welcome to California. Thank you. My name is Keith, and I just want to let you know I'm starting to feel a little discouraged and feel like all the work that I did in 2000 and we all did in 2018 really didn't matter. And I'm also starting to lose confidence in our House Democratic leadership. And I want to know if you support Speaker Pelosi's slow, cautious approach towards the impeachment inquiry or not, and why.
Thank you. First of
Fucking
all,
unimportant
I believe that the
bullshit
president
that's just going to
deserves
help
be
Trump
impeached.
out. whole bunch of presidents deserve to be impeached.
I would also say,
be real
even
here.
though I have revealed myself to be ambitious and that I am a young man running for president, that I also would think twice before offering strategic advice to Nancy Pelosi.
She offered you advice in that closed-door meeting.
Happening here is, to a lot of people,
How to stop
impeachment
Bernie
means removal
Sanders.
from office, but it's really a process, right? And it's the only process we've got left. Because the DOJ has said you can't charge a sitting president. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense to suggest that the president is above the law. But basically it means the only place we can have a procedure, the only place we can have a due process, the only way we can go through the steps of evidence and so forth, as long as he is in the Oval Office, is in Congress in the form of an impeachment proceeding, which I think is what we're going to have to do. But in order to do that, it better be an airtight process. And so I do recognize that while we're still trying to get information, the investigations are ongoing, there are witnesses yet to come before Congress, that there may be some strategic wisdom following that sequence. I'll leave that to Congress. What I will say is that no one ought to be above the law, that it matters that there is a majority.
George Bush made it up.
Mayor, I've got a follow-up. and it's,
Should have been prosecuted
it's
for
to
war
threaten-
crimes.
it's to sort
Made
of
it out.
nail you down. If you were voting in Congress right now,
Not a
peaceful,
fucking
would you
peep
vote
from
for
these
peaceful?
guys.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, good. Neil Fastiaz, thank you.
Ask a real question, please. Any softball bullshit.
Hello. Hi. So you have a tremendous resume, one that speaks to your character and your capabilities. But
You give him a
are running in a
compliment.
field of truly exceptional candidates, particularly in the case of the women who are running, like Senators Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. So my question
They're
to
not
you
good
is,
candidates.
why should the women of America vote for you over our sisters who are kind of more qualified?
That was a poor question.
Look, I admire so many of the people.
Easy
running.
question.
They're extraordinary. And by the way, we ought to have a woman in the Oval Office right now. I'm still disappointed that didn't happen.
Way to just lose yourself a bunch of voters, man. He just screwed himself over quite a
I do
bit.
think, though, that my qualifications are a little bit different.
Now progressives are going to be like,
When you've led a
nope.
city, especially exactly the kind of city that this president targeted with this rhetoric of nostalgia and resentment, but that can find a new future in a way that I think disproves this whole idea that making America great again has to do with turning back the clock. When you have the experience of executive leadership on the ground on everything from economic development puzzles to officer-involved shootings, not just discussing them, but having to actually handle them day in, day out, and having to summon a community together when it comes under moments of intense strain. Not to mention knowing personally what it means to be sent, ordered into a war zone by the stroke of a pen of the American president. And I think a different kind of focus on the future than any of my competitors in this process. I think that I represent something that's just different. Now, the other thing that I want the women of America to know, because I've met a lot of women who say, I like you, I like your message, I think you got an appealing candidacy, but I just will not vote for a man this time, is that I get it, and whether you decide to be for me or not, I promise that I will be for you.
trash.
Mayor, the next one is Haley Canard. Haley.
Does this guy go into detail about anything?
My name's Kaylin, and this fall I'll be embarking on graduate school. And so, like many others, I'll have to take out large sums of loans to pay for my education. So my question is, what will you do about student debt?
So this one's pretty personal for us. I don't know if you saw the rankings of the wealth of the various candidates for president, but our household's pretty much bringing up the rear on that one because we have six-figure student debt. Not because of any wrong choice, actually largely because Chasten made the selfless choice to be a teacher and go through some very expensive graduate school in order to get qualified to do that. We've got to make debt more affordable in terms of interest rates, which if you can refinance a house, you ought to be able to do that on student debt. And I think more...
But you have candidates that want to eliminate
more
debt.
generous programs for public service loan forgiveness so that you can get it forgiven. And then on the front end, I think we should massively expand Pell Grants, and this time actually peg it to inflation so you don't have to go to Congress every time you want to raise them. But I want to mention, and a bunch of other steps to make college more affordable. But I want to mention something else that I think is important that doesn't come up as often in the conversation about college affordability. And it's college should absolutely be more affordable. It should also be more affordable
Should be free.
to live and work in this country if you haven't been to college. Okay, we're talking about an American majority that may not ever have a university degree. And that shouldn't be a poverty sentence. So we've also got to make sure that through, first of all, making sure that we've got a decent minimum wage, starting with 15. But also more broadly, that we honor work and that we have adequate benefits and good pay and affordable health care, housing, education, and the rest of it. That a working class lifestyle is a good one. It ought to be possible in this country to be able to afford to have your kids go to school and to put food on the table, and even to be able to afford to be generous in some way to your little league, to your church, whether you have gone to college or not. And so in addition to making going to college affordable, we've got to make not going to college more affordable in this country.
Okay. How many in the audience, just raise your hand, how many in the audience, this issue of college debt is real? A kitchen table issue. Yeah, look at that. Real people. Thank you. Let me go to Lydia right now. Go ahead, Lydia.
Well, thank you for coming to Fresno. Women's rights and equality are very important issues to me, especially in today's political climate. You've talked a lot about getting along and working together, but in a primary where we have multiple strong progressive candidates to choose from with detailed policies who are polling better than you right now, my question is, what detailed policies will you put in place to guarantee that abortion is kept safe, legal, and accessible, but most importantly, to guarantee women the right to choose what's best for her life?
Thank you.
Ask him for a detailed policy, period. Fuck, you had to go to that. God damn it.
So I think that every candidate for the Democratic nomination ought to be able to demonstrate our commitment to women's reproductive freedom, especially the candidates who are not themselves women. It's why I thought it was important for me to be on the steps of the Supreme Court.
This is a
Planned Parenthood. It's why, if you visit our website, you'll see our commitment to repealing the Hyde Amendment.
So he can talk about his expanding the Supreme Court justices.
Freedom includes freedom to make decisions about your own body, and making sure that we adequately fund the whole range, the whole spectrum of reproductive health services, which of course includes abortion care, but is not limited to that. And I definitely invite folks to look at our website, because our website contains more specific policy proposals than the majority of candidates for president on the Democratic side right now. I promise.
Wow. Thank you.
Well, here's your platform to say it.
You should see, maybe you didn't see all the nodding heads from the women here as you were speaking then. It's very, I watched all the heads. They're moving, they're nodding again. There's a lot of agreement about concern about choice. Thank you so much. We'll be right back. The lightning round is coming next.
Or if you did that. Okay, so what I've heard so far, I've heard of basically other candidates that had a better stance, either the same or better, so no credit there. Why would I vote for a guy with this particular policy when someone else has the better version of it over here? That's in regards to college debt. In regards to college debt. The girl asking for detailed policy about how he's going to deal with the abortion issue. I wish someone would ask that about his other policies, like very detailed, especially foreign policy. I want to hear that blatantly read out. Also, the response of go to my website. Not a good one. Not a good one, right? Because Bernie gets asked all day, how are you going to pay? He talks about Medicare for all. How are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? He has an answer for them. These things should be hours long, not just 1 hour or whatever it is. It should be hours long, so you get full, detailed plan laid out. But apparently the people in this audience don't want to hear shit like that. They just want to be They just want to lay back and have someone massage their feet for them. And that's what they're going to get. I don't know. That would, if I'm a abortion rights person, that is not an acceptable answer. Go to my website. That's not an acceptable answer. Just skirted around the detailed. The question was about, can you lay out a detailed policy? And he says, go check my website. It's more detailed than the other guys. Trust me. I promise you. Not going to work with me. It'll work with dum-dums, but not with me. I was already off this. I'm not going to lie. I'm biased. So I'm already off the Mayor Pete thing. I was never on in the first place. So who the fuck is this guy coming out of nowhere? He sounds like he must be a plant or something. Then I look into him like, oh, he really might be a plant. Uh-oh, you got commercials playing, son. This person got commercials playing, he might get wrecked. You two might wreck them. Yeah, they ain't playing that shit.
Cover it up. That's what I.
Holy fuck. Shouldn't this is something that's that important. Why the fuck are there commercials and all this shit? Fuck. No reason for it.
Welcome back to our special Hardball Town Hall with Mayor Pete Buttigieg. We're live
Mayor
in Fresno, a wonderful part of California. Thank you for all being here, everybody. Okay, lightning round. Yes or no answers would suffice.
Lightning
but you
round.
Want to expand on it. Right to work laws. The last time we had a town meeting, a guy stood up and said, I hate these right to work laws. He said, I'm an electrician. I don't like the fact that somebody can call himself an electrician without joining a union. Where do you stand? Right to work laws.
Bad idea.
Even though you have them in Indiana, you're against them.
Yeah, we do, and it's a bad idea. It helps explain why income is so much lower in Indiana than a lot of other states.
A national draft.
No, but I do believe in national service, and I think we should expand service year opportunities. Not just military, because the military is not for everybody, but
not just
things like
military.
AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, you name it, until it becomes a norm.
That's a draft. It's not really a draft. It's a mandatory.
Or into the workplace. The first question you'd get on your application is, "What'd you do with that year?"
I think it's great.
I think
it's a cultural thing.
I think it would knit a lot of Americans together. I mean, I got to know so many radically different people from me, different politics, different backgrounds when I was in the military. I mean, you shouldn't have to go to war to have that experience.
Did you ever have to use your weapon?
What's that?
Did you have to use your weapon over in Afghanistan?
I took it off safety a couple of times, but I was not kicking.
Yeah, in other words, you were threatened.
Like,
you were threatened.
We had a couple of hairy moments, but it's not like I killed Bin Laden. I was an intel guy. If it gets to where, if it gets to where I'm taking my weapon off safety, it's pretty tough.
Voting in prison.
As soon as someone is released, I believe without any red tape or any cost, they should be able to vote. I'm not there yet on when somebody's still incarcerated.
What do you mean you're not there yet? You sound like Kamala who said it should be part of the conversation. Is it part of the conversation?
It's not my position. I want to be really upfront about that.
You're not heading toward that.
No, but I've had some really interesting conversations with activists about that. And what they pointed out is, even if you believe philosophically, as I do, that it's possible that in a fair system, part of what happens when you're removed from society for a sentence is that you're also removed from voting. We don't have a fair system, and we have a systematic racial bias in who's incarcerated in the first place. And if we can't correct that, it does make my position harder to defend.
Okay,
explain that.
Same topic, same cultural realities. Capital punishment, for or against it?
Against it.
Good. 21 states now against it, and you're against it. In any case. Okay. Those were all easy. And now the tough.
Oh, those were easy.
No, just kidding. Name some of your public figures, Republicans, who you respect. Living.
This is so fucking stupid. This is so stupid. This is a fucking sitcom we're watching. Holy shit.
I know.
This is a sitcom. This isn't real
Roosevelt.
moral issues on the table.
Okay. You know why? Because
he's from Indiana. He was put country before party.
And he united the country going into World War II.
Yeah, wonderful.
He
Wonderful.
He was Roosevelt's diplomat going to Britain to unite the world there. Al Franken, should he have been pushed to resign from the U.S. Senate by the Democratic caucus, his fellow caucus members?
I think it was his decision to make, but I think the way that we basically held him to a higher standard than the GOP does their people has been used against us.
Do you think he should have been pushed to leave?
Again, it was his decision. I think that...
But I'm going to ask you about his decision. Should the other members of the Democratic caucus in the Senate, starting at the top,
we're watching a
shut him
sitcom,
down, and the other people that pushed him to get out, they put a lot of pressure on him to leave. Were they right or wrong?
Well, I think it's not a bad thing that we hold ourselves to a higher
but
standard.
were they right to do that, to push him out of the Senate? Because they did.
I would not have applied that pressure at that time before we knew more.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Scott Sally. Scott Sally.
Welcome, Mayor Pete. Wanted to thank you for your service, and also on that sort of topic, ask you, if you had been in the U.S. Senate in 2002, would you have voted along with Senators Biden and Clinton to go into the Iraq war, and why?
So I was against the Iraq war then, and I believe now is a bad idea.
Are there any wars you are for?
But I actually thought, you're supposed to pretend that it never crossed your mind to run for office until you actually do. I actually did think when I was in college that I might run for office one day. And I actually thought it would probably hurt any future political career that I might have when I stood up and spoke at an anti-war protest as a student. But I also believe so strongly that it was the wrong thing to do. And, we didn't find weapons of mass destruction. If we did, I think it would have been an even worse mistake because they would have been used against us. And we've seen what a total policy disaster that was. And
or they were lying. What the freak?
Bad name. I actually really believe in democracy promotion, just don't think we should do it at gunpoint. But at the end of the day, that was something that cost hugely in lives, in treasure, and in America's reputation. It was a mistake then, and a lot of people back then, it's not just something in hindsight, a lot of people back then knew it was a mistake. And I'm afraid there were some Democrats who maybe believed deep down that it was a mistake, but didn't think that it was safe to say so.
Mayor.
Follow up with that. Are there any wars you are for?
President of the United States, what would you say to Vladimir Putin the first time you met him? Because you will get to meet him.
Sitcom.
Don't mess with our elections.
Thank you.
This is fucking. This is so bad. This is horrible. This is horrible.
My name is Nia Parks, and my question to you is, the topic of reparations is coming up a lot in this election, and I would like to know what your take is on that, and if elected, how would you go about that strategy of giving back to slavery?
Right. So thanks for your question. I think it's time for us to have this
might be the worst town hall ever.
There's a proposal in Congress called H.R. 40. It's named after the 40 acres.
The host is literally cheering for you.
Kept to former slaves, and it proposes that we set up a commission to look at how we could establish a fair and reasonable way to go.
They just messed up with policy in Iraq. That's all.
To do this for this reason. You can't just have racist policies for one generation to another, all the way up to this present day. And
no lying going on, just
maybe less racist policies or neutral
it's a
policies.
brain fart. Ended up in a war.
To just get better. The generational
they're trying to do the right thing. They just screwed up.
Has so many black families at a net worth of roughly zero. Obviously, that is a consequence of the fact that we live in a country where some people used to own other people. And none of us is free. Look, a lot of people think, well, why should I have to contribute to this in any way? Because I wasn't around in the Civil War or something. But we are living in these racist systems today. And that's why in entrepreneurship, in home ownership, in health,
he's sucking up to you. Don't be fucking stupid.
Not to mention in democracy itself, where it is systematically harder for people of color, especially black neighborhoods, to be able to access the vote in so many parts of this country. That we have to systematically reverse that. I think the time has come, and real resources may have to go into that, if only because some of these disparities came about as a result of policy since slavery. I'm not just talking about far-off historic wrongs. I'm talking about the fact that some of our segregated neighborhoods, and of course here in Fresno, there's an egregious pattern of segregation, but it's true in my hometown too. It's not an knock on Fresno. Some of that happened because of policy. Because federal subsidies, and this goes, for example, in the FDR administration, actually took neighborhoods that were less segregated and made them more segregated, the way that housing subsidies were distributed. So we've got to be intentional about this because a lot of intention, unfortunately, brought us to the point we're at right now.
Mr. Mayor, let me ask you
Did
about
you answer the
reparations
question?
back in the Reconstruction era. Thaddeus Stevens, one of my heroes, talked about 30 acres and a mule. Is it a quantum of money, or is it like an opportunity to go to a place like Dartmouth or special educational opportunities? What would be the form of representation would have an ongoing, enduring value to African Americans in this country, not just money up front?
They're going to ask him about
a
fucking
change in their
Game of
opportunity.
Thrones next or something.
How do you do it?
Yeah, that's what the commission ought to work out, but there's no way you can do it without putting dollar resources behind it. Now, the right can't wait to caricature this as a check in the mail that they say would be unfair.
But we did it with Japanese Americans.
That's right, and there can be ways of doing this that are fair, or at least bring us to a more just reality than the one we're living in right now.
Let me ask you about politics. I looked at the numbers, just look at your poll numbers once in a while. I'm kidding. You have to look at them. African Americans are not coming forward as a community to your campaign. What is that about?
So a couple of things. I think the biggest is that we've got to reach out in communities that haven't had a chance to get to know me. If you are neither already famous with a long track record in national politics, nor yourself from a community of color, then of course it's going to take longer for people to come to know and trust you. We were able to do it in South Bend. The minority voters who know me best, by the way, not everybody, of course, but the voters who know me best contributed to that big re-election margin that I was talking about. But I had years to build up that kind of trust. Now, the most important thing is people need to hear the message. What I have to say about how we can make a difference on black home ownership, on health at a time when a black mother is 3 times as likely to die in childbirth as a white mother. Issues in generational wealth building, concepts that don't get talked about much, like the black tax, which is basically the name given to the fact that even for people who do well in professional life, black professionals are more likely to find themselves financially supporting members of their family or close social network, and that this in turn helps make it harder, even for those who made it into that upper middle class, to build wealth and create that kind of generational shift.
Incomes with other family members. Thank you. We'll be right back with the mayor, Mayor Pete Buttigieg. We'll be right back.
So, softball questions on hardball. Damn near non-answers. No follow-up on the whole Iraq war. Like, would you have voted for... There's wars going on now, you know that? Guy who asked the question, is literal wars going on right now. So you ask them, like, would you have voted for this back then? And it's like, you could say any answer there. Whether he's telling the truth or not, doesn't matter, because it happened in 2002. By the way, 70% of the nation was behind going to war with Iraq, because they were lied into it. They weren't just making some, he's messed up on paper. They wrote the wrong words down. We ended up in a war by accident. Just some poor policy choices. Nothing nefarious going on.
I had no symptoms of hepatitis C.
My God, how is he ahead of Tulsi Gabbard is befuddling me.
Whatever your type, ask your doctor if Epclusa is
Very weird. So yeah, the guy asking a question about the Iraq fucking war, would you have voted for it? Not even like details on it.
just found out about my hepatitis. I knew for years.
Like,
Epclusa is only
there's wars going on right now. Ask him about that shit.
food for 12 weeks. Before starting Epclusa, your doctor will test if you have had hepatitis C, which may flare up and could cause
This is
serious
horrible.
liver
This
problems
is
during
a sitcom.
Tell your doctor.
Yeah. This is a sitcom of
kidney problems, other medical conditions, and all
some dude asked him if he would have voted for the Iraq War. It's like,
He said yes.
he said no. But it's like, it already happened. There's shit happening right now. Ask him a detailed.
That's my brain as well.
You want to know what Chris Matthews' follow-up was? How would you feel your first time meeting Vladimir Putin? I'm like, Jesus Christ. I think he says, Chris Matthews said, like, oh, good man, or something, as he's talking. I'm like, fuck. This is a trash candidate on a trash channel, on a trash show, with a trash fucking audience. Holy shit. I mean, just wholly ignorant of anything going on. Incredible. It's like all his answers are either the same or not as good as everyone else's answers. It's like, what makes you special? I'm young and gay.
He's the mayor. His name's Pete.
It's like, fuck. All right, more trash. Here we go.
This is what we're all been waiting for on our program, right? That's not the first time that you've been on Hardball at a live event.
Is it going to be a Game of Thrones question?
You asked the question of a presidential candidate who visited your college, Harvard. Here you were back in 2003 asking Dick Gephardt about young voters. Carson, why are you the only presidential candidate not attending tomorrow's youth-oriented run?
Oh, he was one of the guys in the crowd, just like the people there.
They matter a lot. That's why I'm here tonight. And I've got to be in Iowa. I had a preset meeting that I've got to go to. I got to win Iowa. I'm going to win Iowa, so I'm going to be in Iowa tomorrow night. But I talk to young people everywhere I am. I've got lots of young people on my campaign, and maybe I ought to say this now. When I was in college, Jack Kennedy was president. And I was moved when he said to young people like me, get involved in politics. Give part of your life to politics. So I just want to say to all of you, get involved in public life. Give back to your country. Don't just take from it. And get involved in this campaign. It's not for me. Get behind somebody and get out there and work and make this country better.
This is a fucking sitcom, dude. This is so trash, man. They're just campaigning for this guy.
Look at this guy. So was that the stimulation that you needed to make a move for public life?
First of all, I'm a lot more sympathetic to scheduling requests. Pretty hard. I feel bad about that now. Wow. How'd you find
we have one more question from not in the audience. It's a remote question. And there they go. Sir, do you have a question for the mayor?
This is a fucking sitcom, dude. This is so trash.
Hey, Mayor Pete, you really took me seriously, didn't you?
How's he doing? How do you think he's doing as a candidate? How do you think?
He's doing great. And so here's my question, Mayor Pete. So I get asked all the time by people all over the country, what about the future of our democracy, of America? And my answer is very simple. I've always been optimistic about America because the people are good and they're good citizens. You're out there now meeting thousands of them. Am I still right?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah. That's my experience.
California voter. He's a resident and voting resident of Santa Rosa, so you got to watch it here.
Oh, I need it for sound.
That's my experience, is that people just want to know that they're going to be okay. But, people can have good and bad things called out from within us. We're all capable of good and bad things. Just ask somebody you love. People individually and also collectively, I think we become worse when we're not secure. And part of what's happening right now in a world where we got everything from the rise of China to artificial intelligence and automation, the economy's changing, is people have been made less secure. And it makes it possible for the cynical leader to draw out the worst of us. But I also believe that one of the best reasons to get involved in politics, as I felt called to do when I was a student, by people like Speaker Gephardt, is that you can also use the tools, the skills that you learn as an elected leader to draw out the best in people. And I think that, even more than policy and administration and management, that is the thing we're most missing in the White House right now, and the thing I most want to restore.
When does that happen other than rallying people for a war? FDR brought the best of us to go fight Germany.
Here, 37 years old, running hard with 20 plus.
They're always followed by war.
How does he get
as far as our history?
Guys and women?
So what makes Trump so fucking bad? In that regard.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Same shit keeps happening.
Work hard every day. It's a big job, but you're doing a great job of being out there talking to people and listening to people, which is the most important thing you can do. You're doing great. Just keep on going. I'm proud of you and all the other candidates. We're going to win this.
Enough with the Little League fucking coach. 110%. Good. I'm glad it got fucking cut. I'm happy about it. This is one of the most trash things I've ever fucking seen.
Fresno State.
God damn it. Alright, so. More sitcom, more of the goofy neighbor who runs through the door. Woo! That's what you're getting here, America. Enjoy it.
We know their rates are good. We know that they're always going to take care of us.
It was an instant savings, and I should have changed a long time ago.
It's funny because when we would call,
I don't think Kamala Harris got this treatment.
With the Weber family, we're the Tennies, we're the Hells, and we're USA members for life.
Very weird.
Get your USA auto insurance quote today.
If you have moderate to severe psoriasis.
Shit down. Fucking commercials. Damn commercials. So there's not even any like policy for me to really pick apart. It's just
It's all nothing. It really is.
What we need to do is be nice to each other, and it's like, okay. Is that your place, or are you supposed to just, just come up with policy that keeps people alive, doesn't put them in poverty? That's your job. Yeah. I thought I was going to hear foreign policy or something for a second. This girl, looks like a student or some young lady, stood up and is like, what I need to hear is a very detailed answer to this. What about abortion? It's like, oh, fuck. You know what his answer was? Go check my website. It'll,
That was his answer?
Trust me. It's more detailed than the other candidates. I'm like, fuck. He said things before that, but his end result was, it's all on my website, and it's more detailed than the other candidates. I promise you.
So are you scared yet? Anybody scared yet?
No.
Not until it's
Oh, there's the thing. The things people would consider him good at, there's other candidates that are either have the same or better. Either have the same and better in other areas, or they just have a better policy. It's like, come on. Real world, Bernie, #1, Tulsi, #2. And if you take this world, just improve it a little bit. Just a little bit. Those would be your two candidates. And it'd be like everyone else would just drop out. Or better people would jump in. But listen, these two aren't good enough. I'll do it.
Not yet.
Fuck, man.
Not yet.
We settle for fucking lip service. So, someone
I
at.
wouldn't call it settling. You hear that? People are cheering.
Oh, yeah. But those. Come on. That audience seems a little.
Like this,
I don't know.
For every group of shills, there's a group of dumbasses right around the corner. You know what I mean?
He got asked about the draft.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, I'm not in favor of the draft, but national service, it'll bring people together. You know, when I served, there was people of all different ideology and ethnicity."
Yeah, I'll go to jail before I do anything for those guys, man.
Oh, what happened? Stream ended.
I will go to jail before I ever
Good.
serve them. Yeah.
Me and this other channel only was fucking showing. He must got kicked. I was smart enough to fucking not show that shit. What's up, Muay Thai? Silly motherfucker.
He's not serious.
More jokes.
Huh?
More jokes.
Yeah. For how much solution. There's one other thing that's not being talked about so much, which is how rural America, places like the Central Valley, could be a huge part of the solution. You know, there are some estimates that through better soil management, soil could capture a level of carbon equivalent to the entire global transportation industry. And if we let rural America know that they could be one of the most important parts of the solution, and instead of just feeling like they're being told that they're part of the problem, we might be able to break down some of the resistance, especially at a moment when rural America is beginning to realize, because of this extreme weather, that where I live is making it hard to see whether it's even worth planting soy this year, for example, because some of the fields are so waterlogged after a lot of extreme weather. You know, they have the most to lose. But the point is, all of us need to be part of a national project to deal with climate. Through good policy, yes, but through everything that the private, public, academic, and social sector can bring to bear on the issue. Okay, thank you.
You do like Elizabeth Warren and have the military fight climate change. Green bullets.
That's all for the special hardball town hall. All in with Chris Hayes starts right now. Thank you.
This is probably the worst town hall questions. Worst town hall.
Tonight on All In.
Fuck up, Chris Hayes.
Covering up.
Impeach.
Pressure to impeach. To me, it's a dirty word. The word impeach. With at least 58 House members signaling support. And the first Mueller.
All right, so that was a sitcom level of a town hall. The questions remind me of something you would ask someone if we lived in like a perfect world, but we don't. So the tough questions need to be asked. Actually, they're not tough for normal people, but for these guys, where they have to step out of their lane of I'm a good guy, I'm a good guy, trust me, I'm a good guy, and like, oh, what would you do with in the Middle East? What's your policy with that? Detailed. If you don't have details, get the fuck out of here. If you tell me to go to your website, get the fuck out of here. If you tell me it's not about policy, get the fuck out of here, because people have been crossed too many fucking times. Too many times have they been relying on a candidate like this. Right? This guy would have won if there was no Obama and he was running in 2008. He would have fucking won, because it's that non-answer, fake progressive style, lip service that does not, and it has the smiley face on it. All that bullshit with a smiley face on it.
During that time, some of them were confronted by voters demanding they get
In a way, thank God we had Obama, because now people aren't just going to say, oh, well, he speaks nice, or he says the right things. It's like, I need to know that you were doing the right things when no one was looking at you.
What is the president covering up? of possible
Nothing serious.
obstruction of justice by the President of the United States.
Oh boy, Muay Thai. Alright, that's gonna be it for the stream. Once again, terrible town hall. I'm not a political expert, but you have an hour. You can get into heavy detail on very important topics. I don't even think healthcare was brought up. Healthcare wasn't even brought up. I don't think it was, unless I missed it. Foreign policy was, the question for foreign policy was, would you have voted for the Iraq War? It's like, we've seen all the events afterwards. We've seen what happens. We know where people stand now. People don't like that shit. They don't like the war now. At the time, they were into it. Something tells me Mayor Pete would be for it too at the time. Something tells me. If he looked at the graphics and saw, oh, 70% want this, I'm going to war then. I mean, come on. Brought up Nancy Pelosi, like, didn't you meet with her in a secret meeting? Finding out ways to stop Bernie Sanders? Come on, guys. Alright, that's it from me. Please subscribe if you like. Comment, agree, disagree. Tell me if there's a fan of Mayor Pete and you have some policy that makes a real change here, not just window dressing change. Oh, we're going to change, the stop signs will be a different color now in order to help out the colorblind. So now they know how to stop. If it's shit like that, just save it. Well, tell me anyways. Why not? Tell me anyways. Give me some real impactful policy. Give me a Medicare for all. Give me a get out of these regime change wars. Give me something like that. Fight the banks head on. Whatever. Donate. Devon's Journey to Recovery. The link is down there in the description box. Please donate. GoFundMe link is down there for Devon's Journey to Recovery. It's not for us. It's for charity. Please click that link, read the story, and donate some money. And with all that said, give this video and that fucking trash town hall I just watched, that fucking sitcom-worthy bullshit, family, made-for-family movie, ABC Movie of the Week, Full House, fucking make a lukewarm candidate look good bullshit fucking town hall I just watched. Give that shit a thumbs down as well.
Say you wanna get in.